Hey everyone, Angie and I wanted to talk about PFF, his and hers sort of edition, and
Kind of like the towels, his and her towels.
yeah, his and her towels.
Our meals.
Right. But what we wanted to do was give some perspective on the differences within PFF. And if you don't know what PFF is, it's protein, fats, and fiber. And I've always said that for your blood sugar, your BFF for blood sugar control is PFF, protein, fats, and fiber. Each of them, proteins on their own, fats on their own, fiber on their own, have been shown to help stabilize blood sugar, help with satiety, help with cravings. So it really is a foundation for a lot of my programs or my recommendations for athletes, people with diabetes in general. But obviously there's some differences within PFF that Angie and I wanted to go over because we're a perfect example of that, right?
We do not eat the same. A lot of people do
Yeah.
ask, oh, what does she eat? What do you eat?
Yeah.
And what his PFF meal would look like on a plate is something I personally would not eat because
Right.
let's tell everyone, I don't eat the same type of meats.
Yeah, Angie will not eat red meat or pork.
So
Yeah.
it's a preference thing. I just grew up never eating that
Yeah.
type of meat, but I will on occasion eat some grass-fed ground beef if it's on a burger or sautéed in food and stuff like that. But for
Yeah.
the most part, I eat chicken, a lot of different seafood, and eggs and
Yeah.
turkey and stuff like that. So I tend to like sort of the leaner cuts of meat too. So.
Right. And so that goes into the PF, so the protein fats part. So depending on what type of meat you choose, if you choose grass-fed, 93%, 7% ratio of grass-fed meat, red meat, well, you're getting fat in the meat when you cook it. So there's some fat in there, so you could technically go with steamed broccoli. Whereas a lot of times Angie will cook broccoli in avocado oil or even coconut oil, and I'm fine with that.
So what is your typical PFF plate? Let's just give everybody an idea of just exactly
Right.
what your plate looks like.
So let's just take grass-fed ground meat. So I would have probably about 6 to 8 ounces of that, and then I would have probably, like yesterday I had bok choy, and Angie has sautéed it in avocado oil.
Okay, so that would be his PFF
Yeah,
meal.
my PFF
so
meal.
my PFF meal, I'll tell you what I would have. Like yesterday I had a piece of fish, lightly just pan fried with avocado oil, and then I have a lot of fiber. That's probably one of my biggest things is I love
Right.
massive amounts of vegetables, and I tend to feel like that's enough fat for me if I use just the avocado oil
Right.
on the meat.
Right.
If I have a chicken breast or something and have it on a salad, then I'll have a little bit of dressing. But sometimes I don't add the nuts. Like the fat part for me,
Yeah.
I tend to like leaner cuts of meat. I don't like a lot of fat because I feel it feels heavy on me. And I
Right.
don't feel really good for the rest of the day. It's almost like I can't eat for a little while.
Yeah.
So I like to feel a little bit lighter.
Yeah.
But so my plate looks like a piece of meat cooked in the oil at counting towards my fat, and then a ton of veggies. I mean, I have lots of raw and cooked veggies
Right.
all together.
And so on the contrary, if Angie gave the example of the sea bass and avocado oil and then some on salad or veggies, she wouldn't add nuts, whereas I would add nuts. So in order for me to feel like I'm satisfied, I would add probably a bunch of nuts or maybe even avocado, fresh avocado on the salad or with my meal. So the whole reason why we're posting is that there's a lot of confusion as to people think, oh, well, PFF has to be only a certain way. Like people want to know what is the macro? Does it have to be 50% this and 30% that and 20% that? It doesn't really have to. Now, I would say in general with the athletic population, I would say minimum would be 1 gram per pound of body weight of protein, and then from there you can figure out what you need to go with. But again, if you're athletic, then you are adding some carbohydrates in the form of fruit or some grains or starches, root veggies, after you train. So we had just trained, so we'll probably go home and we'll have some kind of either rice or fruit or sweet potato or something of some kind of carb source. So that would obviously be a different meal, a non-PFF meal.
And for me, my PFF meals, I tend to like to increase my protein. The
Yeah.
lean choice of protein, I like to have a little extra protein. So even if I go out to eat, I'll add extra chicken, but I will definitely have a higher amount of protein and not as much fat for me. I
Right.
tend to prefer that type of eating. And then I just basically, out of all three, protein, fats, and fiber, the fiber is in giant quantities. I really feel like that keeps me pretty satisfied.
Yeah.
And also it's a quantity thing. Like I love cauliflower because obviously, you know, I'm trying not to eat rice throughout the day, and cauliflower gives me sort of a rice satisfaction. Unless it's post-workout, then I'll have some rice. But for the most part, I definitely like to have higher amounts of protein, that's leaner protein, a little bit of oil with it, and then a bunch of vegetables. That's just the way I like to eat, and I feel the best that way.
Yeah.
I kind of have to like go back and forth. Like yesterday I had sea bass, and I was telling Robert that I cooked it in the oil and I was about to add nuts, but it was just like kind of heavy. And sea bass is different than mahi-mahi, you know,
Yeah.
even the different types of fish. Some have more grease than others, and I just tend to not do well with greasier meats.
Yeah, and I think the last thing is that, so if you eat, let's say like Angie, so you eat mostly lean chicken and fish and very lean sources of protein, and you have steamed vegetables, and you're feeling hungry really fast right away. Well, the first thing that I would probably do is maybe add a little bit of fat to that.
Yeah.
So a little bit of avocado oil or avocado, and see how you feel. And if you're like, oh wow, that's perfect, or no, I'm still starving, then maybe at that point now you need to increase your protein, or maybe just increase a little bit of protein and fats. So sometimes
really
a
have to
combination.
play with it.
Right, you have to play with it. You have to experiment as
And
with
each
anything.
meal may be different
right.
too. Like
Yeah.
maybe you have a standard chicken meal that you do with this type of vegetables and this type of grease. But maybe if you do turkey or steak or pork, the ratio is different. I think you kind of have to just really listen to your body, but enjoy what you're eating. The one thing I do for you is I always kind of get you out of your comfort zone and introduce even more vegetables, because I grew up eating so many different vegetables. My mom was
Right.
always preaching like, eat the rainbow, eat the rainbow.
Yeah.
So I definitely love to do bowls. That's my big thing. I do bowls with some sort of base. I'll do like cauliflower rice, and then I'll have like collard greens or Swiss kale, so all kind of cooked veggies or zucchini. Then I'll add my meat, and I add fresh salad on top. And to me, it is so satisfying to eat that way.
Right, and so that's why, you know, for some of you, you may have to experiment. Maybe you're a bowl person. I don't particularly like bowls.
I always use a bowl.
Yeah, I'm pretty simple. I want
He
the
likes the
meat,
plate.
the plate. I want the meat, the veg, or a completely separate bowl, because obviously sometimes we fight over salad.
Yeah.
In our house.
We love veggies.
So, you know, experiment with it, but in general, it's PFF, protein, fats, and fiber. And remember, that's going to be your BFF when it comes to blood sugar control. Until next time.
Eat well to feel well.